My dear sisters and brothers, sometimes Allah chooses a heart, and then He empties it. Not because you are forgotten, not because you are weak, but because you are being prepared. You look around and wonder why you feel different, why the crowd never feels like home, why even among people you feel alone, and you think something is wrong with you. But my dear sisters and brothers, loneliness is often the language Allah uses when He wants your attention fully turned toward Him. The chosen ones are not always celebrated, they are often broken first. Their hearts are cracked open by loss, disappointment, betrayal, unanswered duty. Why? Because a heart that has never broken cannot hold divine light the same way. Allah removes the distractions gently for some and painfully for others until the only place left to lean is Him. And in that leaning, something sacred is formed: depth, sincerity, humility, truth. So if you feel lonely, if you feel shattered in ways you cannot explain, do not rush to label it as punishment. It may be selection. Allah does not entrust heavier manna to shallow hearts. He reshapes you in solitude, refines you in pain, and strengthens you in silence. And one day you will realize what felt like abandonment was actually intimate attention from the one who saw something in you worth choosing. Loneliness is not always the absence of people. Sometimes it is the presence of Allah removing what distracts the heart from Him. There are moments in life when relationships thin out, conversations lose meaning, and the noise of the world suddenly feels exhausting. You may wonder why others seem surrounded by support while you walk a quieter, heavier path. But this quiet is not accidental. Allah, in His infinite wisdom, knows that some hearts cannot be shaped in crowds. Some hearts need silence to hear Him, distance to recognize truth, and solitude to awaken sincerity. When Allah wants closeness, He often begins with separation. He gently, or sometimes painfully, loosens the grip of things you relied on: people, routines, expectations, even your own sense of control. You feel stripped, exposed, unsure. And in that state, the heart naturally asks questions it never asked before. Why am I here? Who do I turn to now? What truly remains when everything else fades? These questions are not meant to break you. They are meant to bring you back to the only answer that lasts. Because when the heart has nowhere to go, it finally turns upward without distraction. Loneliness has a way of purifying intention. When no one is watching, when no applause exists, when validation disappears, the heart reveals its truth. Worship becomes quieter, dukkha becomes more honest, tears become more sincere. You are no longer performing faith for people, you are living it for Allah. And this is where real transformation begins. A heart surrounded by constant affirmation rarely learns humility, but a heart that stands alone learns dependence on Allah in its purest form. Many of the closest servants of Allah walked lonely paths, not because they were unloved, but because their mission required clarity. When too many voices surround you, it becomes difficult to distinguish divine guidance from human opinion. Allah removes the noise so the heart can recognize His direction without confusion. In isolation, priorities shift. What once felt urgent loses importance, and what once felt distant becomes central. The soul begins to recognize that peace does not come from being understood by people, but from being seen by Allah. There is a tenderness in this process, even when it hurts. Allah does not isolate a heart to abandon it, He isolates it to protect it. Protection from attachments that would weaken it, from influences that would dilute its sincerity, from dependencies that would replace trust in Him. Sometimes the very people you thought you needed were blocking the growth Allah intended. Their absence creates space, and in that space, Allah places awareness, strength, and quiet resilience. Loneliness teaches patience in a way comfort never can. When answers are delayed and companionship is scarce, the heart learns to sit with itself. It learns to endure without complaint, to wait without bitterness, to hope without guarantees. This patience is not passive, it is active trust. It is the heart saying, I do not understand this moment, but I trust the one who placed me in it. And that trust becomes a form of worship deeper than words. In solitude, the heart also confronts itself honestly. There is no one to blame, no one to distract, no one to impress. Faults become visible, wounds surface, unresolved grief speaks. This confrontation can feel overwhelming, but it is necessary. Allah heals what the heart is finally willing to face. He brings hidden pain to the surface not to reopen it, but to cleanse it. A heart that has never been alone often carries unhealed layers beneath constant interaction. There is also strength being formed quietly. Loneliness builds an inner stability that does not collapse when people leave. You begin to realize that your worth is not measured by presence in others' lives, but by presence in Allah's sight. This realization changes the way you love, the way you give, and the way you detach. You stop begging for space in hearts that cannot hold you, and you start finding contentment in a Lord who never withdraws. Allah knows which hearts can handle closeness without being consumed by it, and which hearts need distance to remain intact. Some hearts are too deep for shallow spaces, too sincere for superficial bonds. Loneliness becomes a form of mercy for these hearts. It shields them from relationships that would exhaust them, expectations that would drain them, and attachments that would compromise their spiritual clarity. Over time, you may notice that loneliness softens you rather than hardens you. You become more compassionate toward others' pain because you have tasted your own. You listen more deeply, judge less quickly, and speak with more intention. This softness is not weakness, it is refinement. Allah refines the chosen hearts so they can carry light without arrogance and empathy without attachment. In these quiet seasons, Dawla changes. It becomes less about outcomes and more about alignment. You begin asking Allah to shape your heart rather than change your circumstances. You seek nearness rather than escape, and this shift is profound, because when the heart aligns with Allah's wisdom, even loneliness feels purposeful. The world often teaches us to fear being alone, to see it as failure or rejection. But faith teaches us that being alone with Allah is never emptiness. It is fullness without distraction. It is being held without being seen, guided without being applauded, strengthened without being noticed. And the heart that learns this carries a quiet confidence wherever it goes. Loneliness also teaches boundaries. You stop overgiving to feel needed, stop over-explaining to be understood, stop shrinking to be accepted. You become selective, intentional, grounded. You learn that not everyone deserves access to your inner world, and not every invitation deserves your presence. This discernment is a gift, not a loss. When Allah chooses a heart, He prepares it for responsibilities unseen, responsibilities of guidance, support, leadership, or healing. These roles require depth, patience, and emotional resilience. They cannot be developed in constant comfort. They are forged in silence, shaped in waiting, strengthened in moments when only Allah witnesses your struggle. Even when loneliness feels heavy, it carries traces of divine care. The fact that you are being held back from certain connections may be Allah saving you from future pain. The fact that you feel different may be because you are meant for something different. The fact that you feel unseen may be because Allah wants your gaze fixed on Him, not on people's approval. There will be moments when loneliness brings tears, when the heart longs for simple companionship, when silence feels too loud. These moments are not signs of weak faith, they are signs of human need, and Allah honors that need. He listens when no one else does. He comforts in ways words cannot. He places tranquility in the heart without explanation. Over time, you may notice that your loneliness is no longer empty. It becomes filled with reflection, worship, clarity, and inner peace. You may still desire connection, but you are no longer desperate for it. You understand that people may come and go, but Allah remains. This understanding steadies the heart in a world of constant change. Allah does not isolate a heart without purpose. Every quiet night, every unanswered message, every cancelled plan is part of a larger design. A design that prioritizes your spiritual safety over your temporary comfort. A design that values who you are becoming over how you are perceived. And so the chosen hearts walk this path, not because they are less loved, but because they are trusted. Trusted to endure silence, to carry depth, to remain sincere without recognition. Trusted to grow roots in faith rather than branches in popularity. Trusted to find contentment in Allah when everything else feels distant. In loneliness, the heart learns that closeness to Allah is not measured by circumstances, but by surrender. That even when the world feels far, Allah is near. That even when the path feels solitary, it is not empty. That even when nothing makes sense, the one who plans all things is gentle with the hearts He chooses being broken, is one of the most misunderstood experiences of faith. We are taught to fear it, to avoid it, to see it as a sign that something has gone terribly wrong. Yet in the divine order, brokenness is often the beginning of refinement. Allah does not always build by adding, sometimes He builds by removing, by cracking open what once felt whole so that something truer can emerge. The hearts He chooses for higher amana are rarely left untouched, because untouched hearts often remain untransformed. When Allah allows a heart to break, it is not because He enjoys your pain or overlooks your tears. It is because that heart has the capacity to hold more than it currently does. Comfort can make a heart rigid, certain, self-reliant. Pain softens it, it humbles it, it reminds it of its fragility and its need. And in that need, the heart turns toward Allah with a sincerity that ease rarely produces. A heart that has been broken knows how to whisper "Dutale" from its core, not from habit, not from performance, but from truth. Brokenness strips away illusions. The illusion that people will always stay, that plans will always work, that strength means never falling apart. When these illusions shatter, what remains is raw reality. You begin to see yourself clearly, others clearly, and the world as it truly is, temporary, fragile, unpredictable. This clarity is painful, but it is also freeing. It releases the heart from unrealistic expectations and anchors it in something far more stable than circumstances. Allah breaks the heart to protect it from arrogance. When life is smooth, it is easy to forget how dependent we are. We begin to attribute success to our effort, our intelligence, our planning. But when the heart breaks, those narratives collapse. You realize how little control you truly have, and how much you need divine care in every breath. This realization is not meant to diminish you, it is meant to return you to humility, the soil in which faith grows best. There is a sacred vulnerability that emerges after brokenness. You become more honest with Allah because there is no image left to protect. You come to Him as you are, confused, exhausted, disappointed, afraid, and Allah does not turn away from that honesty. He welcomes it. He responds to it. A heart that has been broken learns that Allah is not only the Lord of victories, but also the Lord of tears, of nights spent awake, of questions without answers. Broken hearts also develop a deep sensitivity to others. Pain expands empathy. When you have been shattered, you recognize fractures in others without them speaking. You listen differently. You respond gently. You understand that behind every sharp word, every withdrawal, every silence, there may be an unseen wound. This empathy is not accidental, it is preparation. Allah often breaks hearts that will later be entrusted with caring for other hearts. In brokenness, attachments are tested. You learn what you truly relied on and what was merely convenient. Some dependencies fall away because they cannot survive pressure. And though their loss hurts, it creates space for something stronger. Trust in Allah replaces reliance on creation. Tawakkul becomes lived experience rather than theory. You begin to understand what it means to lean on Allah when nothing else feels steady. The pain of brokenness slows you down. It forces you to sit with questions you once ignored. It interrupts the rush of life and demands reflection. In that stillness, priorities realign. What once seemed essential loses urgency, and what once seemed distant becomes central. The heart begins to seek meaning rather than distraction, depth rather than speed. This slowing is a mercy disguised as hardship. Allah also uses brokenness to cleanse intention. When things fall apart, motives are exposed. Why were you doing what you were doing? Who were you trying to please? What were you hoping to gain? These questions refine the heart. They strip away ego and leave behind sincerity. A heart that has been broken often serves Allah not for outcomes, but for closeness. There is strength that comes only after breaking. Not the loud, visible strength that demands recognition, but a quiet resilience that endures without spectacle. You learn that you can survive what you once thought would destroy you. This knowledge changes how you face the future. Fear loses some of its power because you have already walked through loss and lived. This resilience is not self-made, it is the result of Allah carrying you through what you could not carry alone. Brokenness also teaches boundaries. After pain, the heart becomes more discerning. You stop giving access too quickly, stop overextending yourself to be accepted, stop tolerating what drains your soul. This discernment is not bitterness, it is wisdom. Allah teaches you through pain what peace requires. Many of the people Allah loves deeply walk through seasons of repeated breaking. Each time something unnecessary is removed and something essential is strengthened. Faith becomes less about certainty and more about trust. Door becomes less polished and more real. Worship becomes less about routine and more about presence. These shifts are signs of growth, even when they feel like loss. There is also a divine intimacy in brokenness. When the heart has no defenses left, it experiences Allah's closeness in a unique way. Not always through relief, but through companionship. You feel seen in your pain, held in your weakness, known in your confusion. This closeness leaves a mark. Even when life later becomes easier, the memory of that nearness remains, anchoring the heart in gratitude and humility. Brokenness teaches the heart that healing is not always the return of what was lost. Sometimes healing is becoming someone new. Someone softer, wiser, more grounded. Someone who no longer needs life to look a certain way to feel at peace. This transformation is subtle, unfolding quietly over time, but it is profound. The world may see brokenness as damage, but Allah sees it as access. Access to the depths of the heart, to spaces untouched by comfort, to sincerity that cannot be performed. These depths are where true faith resides. A heart that has never broken may believe, but a heart that has broken often knows. Even when the pain lingers, it carries purpose. Every tear waters something unseen. Every night of struggle strengthens spiritual muscles that ease never would. You may not see the fruit immediately, but Allah is patient in His work. He shapes hearts across years, not moments. The chosen ones are not spared from breaking, they are shaped by it. Their strength is not the absence of pain, but the presence of trust within pain. Their faith is not loud, but it is deep. Their connection to Allah is not dependent on ease, but rooted in experience. And so brokenness becomes not the end of the story, but a turning point. A quiet reorientation of the heart away from illusions and toward truth. Away from self-sufficiency and toward reliance. Away from surface-level faith and toward something lived, tested, and real. Allah does not waste broken hearts. He gathers every fragment, every tear, every sigh, and uses them to build something more beautiful than what existed before. Something less fragile, more sincere, more aligned with eternity. And the heart, once shattered, becomes a vessel capable of holding light without shattering again,